Good afternoon, Legal Advice Clinic. This is Nicole speaking. Hi, Erin. Wonderful. We'll be down in a minute. Thank you.
Hi, Miss Jones. I'm Daniela. We're your student advisors.
Hi, Nicole. Lovely to meet
Hi,
you.
Nicole.
You just want to come through to
Please
this
take
room?
me through. Sure. If you'd just like to take a seat over there.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Yeah, good, thank you.
That's good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're very good, thank you.
Thanks for coming to see us today.
No problem.
So before we start the interview process and before you start telling us why you're here today, we're just going to run through a few housekeeping matters. So what Daniela will do firstly, she'll just run through our retainer agreement and then we'll all sign if we're happy with that one. And then I'll just go through your details and we'll run upstairs to do a conflict check.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That sounds good. So we'll just give you an agreement to follow along with, and we find that's easiest. So, firstly, just a little about the clinic. We're staffed by law students. We provide confidential free legal advice, but obviously we're not lawyers. So everything we do is checked by a qualified legal practitioner. This means that sometimes we will need to leave the interview room to confer with them before giving any advice. There are certain cases where we cannot provide assistance due to the complexity of the matter or if a conflict of interest may arise. In those situations, we'll let you know as soon as possible, and we can provide you with some contact details of alternative legal services. What we can do for you, so if you require more than any basic initial advice, we can write to you and let you know whether we can help you with that. We don't represent clients, unfortunately, so what we do is we give you everything you need to best represent yourself. And so any correspondence that we prepare for you will be done in your name. Obviously, we don't charge for any of the work that we do, but there are certain, you're responsible for any costs that your matter incurs. So this might be for things like court lodgement fees or expert witnesses, things like that. You'll need to cover all of those costs. Confidentiality, so obviously everything related to your matter is kept completely confidential. But I do need to make you aware that sometimes we do use files for educational purposes. When we do this, all your identifying features are blacked out, and so what remains is really the abstract facts or issues of the matter. And this helps our law students to learn in a very practical way. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask. We want you to be comfortable with that. But there's nothing to worry about. We all undergo extensive confidentiality training, so you don't need to worry about that. In some situations, we may consult with third-party legal practitioners. But again, as with everything else, we'll let you know before we do that. There's just a few very important facts that I want to make sure you understand and acknowledge. So I acknowledge that a student advisor has explained this agreement to me. A student advisor has explained disbursements and legal costs. The clinic cannot represent me and only provides advice and assistance. The clinic can cease the provision of advice and assistance at any time, and my file will be used by the university for teaching and research purposes.
Yeah.
So are you happy with everything? Do you have any questions before you sign?
No questions.
Everything made sense?
We'll just ask you to fill out your full name there and just your signature, and then Daniela and I will also sign that one. Okay, so just the next step is we just got to get a few details from you, if possible. Can we start with your last name?
Yeah, Jones.
Jones, and that's just spelled Jones. First name?
Philippa.
And your title?
Ms.
Ms. Now your postal address, please.
15.
Postcode for that is 5,000, isn't it?
That's right.
And is your residential address the same as your postal address?
It is.
Now, just your telephone contact number, what's best to contact you?
04.
Okay, and you're happy for us to telephone you and also to leave phone messages?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, now we're just going to grab a few demographic details. So your date of birth,
The first
your gender,
female.
are you of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander descent?
No.
Your country of birth,
Australia.
preferred language?
English.
Okay, so now we're just going to get a few details about the other person involved with the dispute. Was it the SA police or was it another party?
No, it's another party.
Okay. Do you know their last name?
Smith.
Smith. Sarah Smith. Do you know her address by any chance?
No, I'll bring it next time.
That's okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And how did you hear about the UniSA Legal Advice Clinic?
Googled it.
Google. Do you have another lawyer, or have you been to any other legal aid service? No.
We're just going to go upstairs and do a conflict check. Now just make you aware there's some magazines behind you over there. There's some water out in the reception area. Do you need to move your car? You're okay for parking?
No.
Great. So we won't be too long, about 15 minutes. We'll be right back.
Sure.
I'll just open up the clinic L drive and open up the client list so we can have a look there.
Okay, so her name was Philippa.
So I'll just control search that. So PH, we'll try that one first.
And her last name was Jones.
Jones. So we've got a Jones, a hit for Jones. It's fine. There's another Jones there, but that one's another name. That's okay.
And now the other party, her name was Sarah, S-A-R-A-H. And last name was Smith.
Just try that. Okay, so there's no conflict there.
Okay, so we can go downstairs and tell the client.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for waiting.
So everything is all good there. We'll just invite you to tell us what brought you in today. Tell us a little bit about your matter.
Sure. So a couple of weeks ago I was in a car accident between me and Sarah. The accident was I was just driving along the street. I wanted to make a right hand through. I was hit while I was turning, and so both cars were written off. Sarah's now got in contact with me and asked for me to pay $15,000. Also, I don't think I was completely at fault. So yeah, I'd just like to know what to do about that, and also whether I should get an actual lawyer as well.
Okay, wonderful. So what we'll do now is, now that you've told us a brief overview of why you're here, we're just going to run through the story again, but obviously in a lot more detail. And we're just going to ask a few questions and write a few notes down. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, wonderful. So when did this happen?
Saturday 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
What time of day was that?
It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
In the afternoon.
And whereabouts?
I was driving. So it's got 2 lanes. So I was in the right-hand lane.
The far right to turn right.
To turn.
And then where was the other car coming from?
The other car was coming from the other direction.
Did you see the car before you turned, or did it come out of a blind
No,
spot?
I was just following the car in front of me. They turned and I just
So you don't have any other witnesses?
no.
No? Now what happened when you both pulled over? How did you exchange details? Was she angry?
Yeah, I was in a lot of shock. So I said it was all my fault when I was there. I said it was completely my fault, and we exchanged details. Thinking back, I don't think it was all my fault now. So.
Right. So was the police contacted at all?
Yes, the police arrived
And what was the damage to your car and to her car?
they were both written off.
Written off completely?
Yeah.
Do you and Sarah both have insurance?
No, neither of us. My neck's been hurting a lot since the accident, so I'm wondering if that's
How soon after the accident did your neck start hurting?
that evening. Is there something I can do with that, like if it was because of the accident?
Well, we actually, as a clinic, we don't deal with any personal injury claims. However, we can help you with the property damage, but in terms of personal injury, unfortunately, we can't assist. But we'd be more than happy to refer you off to someone that can, if you like. So if you definitely want some details on that, we can provide you with those.
It might be very helpful for our file purposes if you could draw a rough diagram of the accident.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think you'd be able to do that? Okay, great. Thanks for doing that.
No problem.
So I think we probably just need to find out what kind of license were you driving?
A learner.
Was there someone else in the car with you?
Yes.
Yes? And who was that?
My mum.
How fast were you going round there when you were following the other car?
Well, I was going from a stop and turning side.
And how fast do you think Sarah was going? Would you say she looked like she was speeding, or do you think she was within the speed limit?
I'm not really sure. She might have been going a little bit too quick.
So just to clarify, before we go up to the supervisor, tell us what outcome you'd like here. What exactly would you like us to help you with?
Okay, so I know I'll have to pay something for the car, but I don't want to pay the price that she said. And I also don't think I have to pay the full amount. And I also want to know whether I would there'd be any advantage in getting a lawyer.
Okay, we can definitely go speak to our supervisor. Like I said already, unfortunately we can't help you with the personal injury side of it, but we'll definitely go ask about the property damage and obviously what you'd like us to help you with and see if there's anything that we can do. We might be 15 to 20 minutes or so. Again, like Daniela said last time, there are some magazines behind you. If you do want to grab a coffee or move your car, please feel free, and we won't be long, hopefully.
I'm going to keep reading about winter gardening.
Finished with the client. She was in a motor vehicle accident. At the time there was no direct injuries, but she since said that she's suffering a bit of neck pain. So we'll tell you a little bit about what she said happened with the accident.
So she was driving down Ascot Road, wanting to turn right onto Hutt Street, and she was in the far right lane. So she was turning right, and according to her, she just continued on. Car obviously coming in the opposite direction, hit her side on.
And there were no traffic lights there.
Yeah. Both cars were written off. Both cars pulled over. She admitted that it was her fault to the other party. However, she thinks now, looking back, that it might not be entirely her fault.
She felt like that was just in the moment. She was really freaked out about what had happened. They called the police though, and the police took both of their statements at the time.
The other party's asking for her to pay $15,000. But our client doesn't think that that's how much the car's worth, and she doesn't think she should be paying the full amount anyway. And she wants to know whether she should get a lawyer.
How does she see us helping her?
Well, she wanted us to advise her of whether she had to pay the full amount, whether there was any issue that she had taken the responsibility at the time of the accident, but now she believes that she wasn't solely responsible for it. And whether we can actually help. But one of her questions was, should I get a lawyer? Is there any benefit to me getting a lawyer?
And what advice do you feel comfortable giving? Is there anything that you think we should be telling the client?
We already told her that we can't help her with a personal injury claim, but that we would refer her off.
As far as the other advice goes, though, we'd want to do some more research just to be 100% certain in this area of law.
Yeah, I don't know too much about motor vehicle.
Yeah.
And so when we're researching, what are you going to be researching?
I think first off as well was the learner's license. I think is what threw me the most.
Yeah.
What rights they have.
And whether the mum has any responsibility as a supervising driver.
Okay. And so what do we need to tell the client now?
I think we would need to go downstairs and just say to her that we need to do a little bit more research into it to be able to give her proper advice. And that we will contact her hopefully in a few weeks with perhaps a letter or a phone call, however she feels comfortable, outlining our advice of what we think her next step is.
And whether we can help in that letter.
And are you able to do that in a couple of weeks? So with your existing caseload, what you've got on, are you able to do that in 2 weeks?
Yeah, this isn't a very complex matter, I think. After the initial research is done, should be fairly straightforward.
I think we should be okay in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Told the client that we can't do personal injuries.
Correct.
Okay, that's okay. That's the right thing to say, Nicole. But before you say, you need to run it by me first. So it's easy to fall into the trap of giving advice so you think you know the answer. But there may be situations when you think that you're right, but you're in fact wrong. So it's really important to be giving before giving any advice by running it by me or Betty first.
Thank you so much for your patience and for waiting.
I hope you enjoyed that reading material over there.
So we've had a chat to our supervisor, and as I did mention to you earlier, he confirmed that unfortunately we can't help you with any personal injury matters. However, we will be able to provide you with a referral to someone who can, or service that can. We'll provide you, hopefully with a list so that someone will be able to help you.
And so then, with regards to your other matter, we need a little bit of time to look into things, and then we'll be able to send you out a letter outlining whether, firstly, we can advise you, and if we can, we'll be looking into the implications of you being on a learner's license, and as well as looking into motor vehicle law and how that applies to your circumstances. So we'd like to take a little bit more time. If that's okay with you, and just send that to you via letter, written correspondence, or over the phone if that's better for you.
Letter's fine. Great.
But we may actually need to call you again or bring you in for a second interview if we need some more information for you. So just want to make you aware of that as well.
Yes, that's fine.
And then when you receive your letter, read it thoroughly. If you have any more questions following what we've said in that letter, feel free to come in again for another appointment. And hopefully we'll be able to help you there.
Yeah, great. Thank
Does
you
that
very
all
much.
sound good? Do you have any more questions?
No,
Or?
no more questions.
Okay, great. Well, I think that covers everything. We'll just walk you out to reception. Thank you
Great.
so much for coming in
Thank you so much for
today.
your help.
No problem.